I'm joined by rising Republican star Kari Lake. Kari, cheers and welcome to Talking Pints. I tell you what, you wouldn't be allowed to do this on American television.
I don't think so, no.
No, I doubt it.
They should. This is a great idea. This is a great idea.
Well, people sit down, whether it's a cup of tea or a coffee or a drink, and they talk about life, and that's what we try to do. What a weekend to be in London. How
amazing. What an amazing point in history to be able to witness. Hasn't happened in my life, hasn't happened in your life,
no.
Probably most people's lives. And I was so impressed with the beautiful display, the pomp and circumstance, and a little bit of pinching myself, like, am I really watching this happen?
It was incredible. And to see Charles and Camilla, our king and queen, leaving the Abbey. I was with an historian who said this could have been in the 1200s. It was a sort of medieval feel to it all. Yeah, look, America didn't like George III, and we didn't like George III much either, but hey, what a time to be here. Kari, it's interesting. You're a very well-known figure in the States, known here to those that follow politics closely. But I just wanted to find out a bit more about you, and it appears, you're a Midwest girl from a very big family and genuinely quite poor.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, we didn't think of ourselves as poor back then. My father was a history and government teacher and a football coach. My mom was a nurse. When you have 9 mouths to feed, it almost doesn't matter what you do. You're going to run out of money because that's a lot of mouths to feed. But it was wonderful to grow up in a big family, 8 girls, 1 boy. And we didn't have food in the house. And you're probably thinking of the biofilm that I put out.
Yeah.
But as a child, I never thought, wow, we're poor. Isn't that funny? We probably could have been on government assistance if my dad would have wanted us to, but, we would have had to have been really destitute before he would ever put his hand out and ask the government to help out. Times have changed quite a bit. The government kind of hands out money a lot easier nowadays.
Yeah, well, you've actually got in America towards a sort of European-style social model.
It's being pushed, yeah. But the great thing from growing up in a family like that is the work ethic you learn. You have to chip in, you have to help out, and the riches that I got from that, besides my siblings, is that work ethic, that Midwestern work ethic, because I'm from the heartland of America, Iowa, which is a big agriculture state. And so I'm just blessed to have that upbringing. Wouldn't change it.
And used to very cold winters.
Cold winters.
Winters that we couldn't even believe here.
I don't know. It was pretty cold here a few days ago.
Well, not quite like Iowa in January, February. So how is it, Kari, from this background, when's the light bulb moment that you decide television's where you're going to go?
I didn't really decide that I was going to go into television. I was a broadcast journalist for 30 years, and I didn't even decide to do that until halfway through college. And I thought, that would be an interesting job, to be able to tell people's stories, to be able to be in the middle of news when it's happening. And I absolutely...
For those watching on television...
Oh, there I am.
You can see Kari in action, sorry.
I absolutely loved my career for almost all of that time. And then during COVID, I realized...
Something happened, didn't it? Because, you were very settled. You'd been, one of the star presenters for 22 years, the best in Arizona, much warmer, where you moved to, and you were there. But it's interesting, because it's difficult, isn't it, sometimes to know what do TV presenters really, really think. We're having that debate about Fox
you're not
News
really supposed to say. If you're just a journalist, you kind of keep your political opinions to yourself. At least you're not to put them out, unless you're a commentator. Like everyone in Britain knows where your political leanings are, so they're not surprised. But when you're doing straight-up news, you're supposed to keep it quiet. But during COVID, I found that an agenda was being pushed, and I did not want to take part in not putting out the full truth. I didn't feel we were...
No, clearly something happened here. And this is what I want to explore and examine, because, we know that you were a Republican when you were very young, disenchanted by the Iraq War, in fact, by constant wars, and I totally understand that. And yet, but you're seen sort of within the last decade as being quite a liberal figure. There's you, your husband Jeff, you donate money to the Obama campaign, you're allegedly quoted as talking about, maybe the way to deal with the border crisis is to have amnesties for people who come illegally into America.
Actually, that's not true, but I'll go into that.
But true or not, what I'm saying is this. The perception of you was that you were a fully paid-up member of the liberal elite there in Phoenix, Arizona. And something happens. COVID comes along, and it seems to me two very big things.
Two different things happened.
Yeah.
COVID was the wake-up call I needed to step away from my career, to walk away from a 7-figure contract and say, I don't care how much they pay me, I will not read this anymore. I will not take part in propaganda. So that happened to me before I even got into politics or dreamed of it. But I grew up about an hour away from...
Did you feel that, Kari, over COVID policy or more broadly about politics as a whole?
Yeah, politics, it got really old. I mean, you're working in a newsroom in America, and it's 95% liberal.
Yeah.
And they were hell-bent on trying to bring down President Trump. And I saw President Trump as the greatest president I'd ever seen since Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan is what caused me at 18 to register and be a Republican. And then somewhere along the way, the Republican Party lost their way as they were starting wars, endless war, another war here, lying about Iraq.
And you thought Obama...
That's why we backed away and said, who's going to...
But you thought Obama could be a sort of bright new hope for America.
I did think that, and I think a lot of people did. 10 million Obama voters switched over and brought us President Trump.
Yeah.
They said, wait a minute, this guy's not what he said he was going to be. Not only did he not bring us together and put some of the racial unrest to bed, he helped stir it up.
But you were skeptical about Trump to begin with, yeah?
No, never. When he came down the escalator, and I've got a book coming out here, and I write about this, I remember people in the newsroom losing their minds over his speech at the bottom of the escalator.
And the funny thing is, prior to that, he'd been an enormously popular figure in America. The Apprentice.
Beloved.
The Apprentice mega. And this was the guy that took on the big guys, took on the mafia in New York, real estate, glamorous wives. I mean, he was a very popular figure.
Living the American dream, right?
Yeah.
And people loved him. And then, oh my gosh, he decides as an outsider to jump into politics. Much like me, I decided as an outsider, I'm going to jump into politics. Why not? Isn't that how it's supposed to be? And that's when they turn on you. Because you're an outsider.
Well, what you did, of course, was, you went along and spoke at a CPAC event, and which I've been going to year after year. So suddenly, you decide, and there you are, you're married, 2 children, you got a good job. In fact, you've done it for so long.
A great job.
It's probably relatively easy because you've been doing it for so many years.
Yep.
You know what you're doing. 7-figure income, popular, liked, invited to all the smart parties and all the great places, and you decided to give it all up.
Well, it wasn't really a party. I didn't go to all the smart parties because I was...
You know what I mean.
It was a wonderful life. It afforded me a lifestyle that was wonderful. But I got to live with myself and look at myself in the mirror, and I got to answer to God. And I really was starting to feel that once I felt my job was not just becoming biased, it was becoming immoral. And once you realize something you're doing is immoral and you continue to do it, then it makes you immoral. And I'm not willing to do that. So I stepped away.
Okay. And the evangelical side of you, that also developed during COVID, or was it there before?
I was raised Lutheran and Catholic. My parents were from opposite sides of town. And that was actually, when my mom and dad got married, my mother's father disowned her for several years because she married a Lutheran outside of the Catholic Church. Obviously, she was Catholic. We have 9 kids. So I was always raised with faith, strong faith, and we went to Sunday school every week. But during COVID, when I really felt a need to get back in church, all the churches were shut down for some time. And my church was shut down by appointment only. And I said, we really need to get back in church. I'm just really feeling a draw. That's when we discovered an amazing evangelical church, and it changed our lives. It changed our families' lives.
You talk about God quite a lot.
I think it's really important right now. I think that God is so missing in our society, in our culture. And I'm not going to say it about your culture. I'm not sure if God's missing from your culture. But in America...
The coronation was a profoundly Christian event.
It was beautiful. It really was.
Charles is, he's the head of our established church. Now, we are an increasingly irreligious country, but actually at the centre of our constitutional arrangements, Christianity is there. And it really...
I think people are returning to their faith right now in record numbers.
Do you think so?
I think so. I mean, I know a lot of people who are getting back into the church and reading the Bible because we're in such difficult times. And oftentimes, when things are going great, we tend to go, okay, hey, thanks, God. That was great. Thanks. But when things are going tough, That's when you're down on your knees praying.
So you've been through this sort of epiphany. You know, religiously, faith-wise, politically, and you start appearing, as I say, at things like CPAC. And then I think it was Turning Point, a Charlie Kirk event with Turning Point, and suddenly Donald Trump spots you and immediately recognises a star. So did that relationship with the two of you just sort of hit it off immediately?
Well, interestingly, I'd interviewed him. I had been granted 2 exclusive interviews with President Trump. I was also granted an interview with President Obama, which was funny. During the campaign, they took the picture of me and President Obama at the White House and acted like we were prom dates. You know, it was kind of, you know how they'll do that with the media. But I interviewed President Trump twice. I was always fair. I felt it wasn't my job to tear him down. It was my job to treat him fairly. And I never did, by the way, that amnesty thing that you mentioned. That was me as a journalist saying, hey, what are your thoughts on amnesty?
Okay, I mean, Kari, all I'm saying is the perception of you was that you were very much part of the liberal establishment, and suddenly you are where you are. Trump then endorses you.
But he did see me at that Turning Point event. And at the time, I think there were 5 people running, maybe 7 people running. He listed off all of our names, who's running for governor. And when he said my name, the crowd went nuts. It was a beautiful, wonderful moment.
Yeah, and I was there.
I think it was like a minute long.
I was at Mar-a-Lago. I was at the back of the audience at Mar-a-Lago. I didn't see you that night, but I was at Mar-a-Lago when he endorsed you in front of that crowd at Mar-a-Lago. I was there that evening, and off you went and ran this campaign. And I was in Phoenix the day of the midterm elections. I was there, and this is a hard one. There is no doubt that in Maricopa County, which is the biggest, most populous county in Arizona, on the day, the voting system wasn't working.
Yeah.
People were told they had to wait up to 5 hours to vote. And I have to say, I mean, our system here isn't perfect. We've had early mail-out voting for the last 20 years, plenty of fraud cases, plenty going to prison. I'd much rather it was all paper and pencil on the day voting. But to think that in America, this advanced country that leads the world in technology and all these things, that people could be told in Phoenix it might take 5 hours to vote. So I understand. I completely understand. Your deep sense of anger and frustration. Republicans tend to vote on the day. You feel your vote was suppressed.
Oh, well, when the machines don't work and they're printing the wrong ballot.
But here's the problem, Kari. And I had this debate last week because Donald Trump was in Scotland last week. And I was with him. He was on good form, actually. He really was, considering all the legal cases mounting up against him. But here's the problem, Kari. If you go on fighting legal actions over what happened previously, for Trump to win, for you to win with whatever you're going to do next, whether it's running for Senate or whatever it is, people need a big, strong, positive message. And you can't get that by fighting previous wars.
Actually, I disagree with you on that, Nigel, because we can't ever solve our problems. And we've got great solutions, positive solutions to solving our problems. But if we have an election system that is so mixed up, where the people don't trust in it, someone's got to stand up and fight. And we're doing well. Our court case is going to start next week. The media won't report it. We're going back to court. Friday we have a court date, and next week we have a 3-day trial. So we'll see what happens.
Do you really think you can win with that judiciary?
I don't know if we can with the judiciary. I know that we have an incredible case. I know that we have facts in our case. And the people of Arizona know what happened on Election Day. They know that it was sabotage. And the question is, can we get judges who are fair?
No, some do.
See. But I have
Kari,
to fight
some
it.
do. Others say it's conspiracy theory. I mean, all I'm saying to you is, I've noticed, when I was with Trump last week, I noticed that he's beginning to understand. And look, let's be honest, the Hunter Biden laptop, the absolute refusal of mainstream media and social media to talk about the contents of that, the money coming from China and Russia and Ukraine and all the rest of it. Well, I get all of that.
And the constant harassment of Trump by the DOJ. It's all meant to hurt him.
By the DOJ, the Russia hoax, which I went through here in this country as well. Look, I am a friend of Donald Trump's. I very much want him to win. I think Western civilization is genuinely under threat. And I think this is the man that can stand up and fight. I reckon, Kari Lake, there's a fairly good chance he could pick you as his vice presidential running mate.
I don't know if that's true or not. I really don't. I don't think he's even looking at that right now. He's putting out an incredible agenda I don't know if I know you've been paying attention, but maybe the people haven't. An incredible agenda right now. This is so far ahead of when he would pick a running mate.
But if he offered
I don't even think he needs a running mate, to be honest.
No, of course he does, because something happened to the
He's
president.
that powerful.
That's nonsense. There has to be a vice president. You would accept if he offered it.
I will do anything I can to help President Trump win, and I want nothing in return for it. I ask for nothing, and what I ask for is that he gets in there and works hard. I know he will, and turns our country around, because I want a country for my children.
Well, I tell you what.
Whatever he decides.
We need it too, because if you fall, we all fall. Kari Lake,
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nigel.